Boundaries are everywhere. If there was no boundary within the sky would fall. If there was no boundary between the sun and the moon, they would clash. We would be set on fire. Everywhere you look, there are boundaries. This is why God said in the beginning, when he made the heavens and the earth, he separated the waters from this, and he separated the sea from the dry land. He did all those things, and he created boundaries. He's the creator of boundaries. And so sometimes, as Christians and as believers, we can have this negative kind of thought towards boundaries, because some of us, and look, I'm jumping ahead of series, but let me just go ahead and start right there, because sometimes we just feel as though it's the Christian thing to do for people to just have access to us. That setting boundaries is not the Christian thing to do, and that you should just always be available. You should just always be open. So we're going to actually talk about the root, issues, some root issues, because that is an issue, that is a problem. Not everyone deserves access to you, and everything that I'm going to coach you through and share with you, I'm going to back it up with scripture as well, so that guilt can be removed, so that self-applied pressure that you or someone that because I've been there. Does anybody have a hand? Jules, Brittany, have you ever had self-applied pressure? Not even talking about the influences from other people. Hello, beautiful Tashiana. Yes. So, have you ever, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Have you ever had someone, or been that one that just put that self-applied pressure on yourself? You just felt this pressure to be there, felt that, if you weren't, life would fall apart. Life will fall apart for your children. Life will fall apart for your home. Life will fall apart at the job. There's no boundaries. You don't want to take any time off because you're living up to what status? What is that thing? I want you to think about it as I'm talking about it. Because we might identify it. It might be said. I see your hands, Tashiana, Jules. I see you, Ebony. I see you all. I never looked at boundaries like that before. With 3 kids and a husband, listen, we're going to talk about, I don't know how to set my boundaries. We're going to get it. Jaquel, hello. Yes, she said yes, and I wore myself out. Good afternoon, Deshauna. You definitely do. So that's what we're going to talk about. Go ahead and share this, because I'm telling you, this is absolutely going to be groundbreaking for some people. I'm telling you, it's going to help you in your businesses that you are establishing, if you have yet to establish them. Even if you're single, it's going to help you while you're single, while you're courting somebody. Yes, boundaries are for people that you're courting. And I'm not just talking about sexually. I'm talking about emotionally. If they're required even in marriage. Listen, God is a God of love, but we even have boundaries when it comes to him. Look, we needed blood to cross that boundaries. And when we crossed over, we still have certain boundaries. So never feel bad for setting boundaries in place. Never feel bad. Never feel bad. You have to set boundaries. Some of you all just came in. Listen, go back to the beginning. We talked about how in the beginning, the earth was void. It was full of darkness. God started off with setting order. He starts setting some boundaries. So when you set boundaries in your life, you set order, and you set those boundaries, not because it's selfish, not because you just an introvert, or you just don't want to be around people, or these boundaries is just something that you're setting in place to get out of being connected or doing or participating in whatever it is. No, it's for your protection, and it is for the other person's protection. So we're going to talk about all of that. This is for the mom, the stay-at-home mom, dad, businesswoman. You can be both, you could be all. If you're in ministry, if you are, listen, we're going to talk about all of that, because some of you are being groomed, are already walking into mentorship. You're already going to be going into having those non-for-profits and really dealing with women that are going to come with all types of things going on. Men too. That's why I said Superwoman or man, because I know some men, they might be quiet, but they follow, they message Tony Tony and I, you might be watching too. And so you have to know how to properly set boundaries. There's some pastors who don't know how to properly set boundaries because people feel entitled to your life because you're mom, because you're pastor, because you're their mentor, because you're their sister, because they're your mom, because they're your dad, because they're your cousin. And so sometimes along the way, these little boundaries can get crossed. But like I said, throughout this series, we're going to establish how you do that. How you do that. You have to know that it is okay. And we need to know exactly, the purpose of setting boundaries, which I lightly hit. It's for our protection. It's for our peace. It's for our sanity. Okay. And among other things that you may not, or you may have even realized. So like I said, when I first came on, I got notes everywhere. If you got a pen, if you got a pad, if you don't have it, and you need to run and go get it, go ahead, make you know what I'm saying, some tea or iced coffee, if you don't drink coffee or whatever you got to do. Let's go ahead and dive in with, we need to really sit on each section and really meditate and reflect and kind of chew on it. And I'm telling you, as I was taking down these notes, it was blessing me. I realized that, sometimes you come to a realization that you not only need to put boundaries there for others, but you have to create boundaries for yourself. Boundaries for yourself not to cross. You have to learn not to cross yourself. You have to learn how not to cross the boundaries you even set for yourself. And so this is going to be absolutely great. It's going to be absolutely empowering. And I'm glad that just with this little introduction, you're already fired up. I hear you all. And so this is also going to help you to prioritize, not feel guilty. Listen, when you're moving into new things, you need that space. You need that time to create. You need that time to pray. Listen, and you can't have time for the things that you know that God is calling you to pursue if you have no boundaries in your life and everyone has access to your mind, to your spirit, to your heart, to ideas. It's okay to say, I'm not letting anybody know what I'm going. Oh, but I thought because of who I am that you would have told me first or second, or and so let me just establish, as we already in the discussion, of course, I don't think that I have to say it, but I am going to say it, that, this isn't, this is not moving. We're not moving in unintegral ways and just setting boundaries that other people don't know about. We're not just, we got some type of little feeling about something and then, I'm ignoring your calls, or I'm doing, I'm moving shady. This ain't shadiness, right? Okay. We're talking about healthy boundaries. We're talking about properly, because you can't move shady and then say, oh, I set a boundary. Like, no. And boundaries have to be set in place with integrity and with character. Okay. And so when you're setting boundaries, they have to properly be set. It is not a thing where, oh, I just don't feel like doing this, or I don't feel like getting up, or I just don't feel like, doing it, so I'm not. That's not a boundary. It's a, some people have some blurred lines within their boundaries. Sometimes we can do it. Sometimes, they can do it, but we have to make sure that when we realize and recognize when this is a thing where, if you're just tired, that's just a discussion. Hey, I'm tired, or I'm this, or, or I just can't, today. That's just verbally telling someone in that moment. It doesn't mean that in life you won't make sacrifices and that you won't go above and beyond sometimes for some people. It doesn't mean that there won't be times that you might be tired and you just might press because this person needs it, or you need it, or whatever. We're talking about when it's a constant pull, when it's a constant drain, and when it is, you have to be able to properly set those boundaries. So later in the series, we're going to talk about that, like I said before, because you might come into some relationships and you need to define those relationships. You need to know what the purpose of this relationship is for. I remember meeting my husband, and he, was so excited. Here it is. I'm his new little boo thing on his arm and stuff. And so he's like, oh, I want you to meet this person. I want you to meet that person. And I'm meeting them. I'm like, hi, I am just an outgoing person, just period. That's just me. I'm a hugger. I am, I'm just like, hi, and some people are just like, hi, like, oh my goodness, and because we're that way, or I'm that way, I was just like, I had to understand over the years that everybody is not like that. But I also came to understand that just because people are, come on, bounce, like you see it, and with the puffs. Listen, I had to understand, like, Nicole, you're outgoing, but at the same time, you have some boundaries that you're unaware of. And I was like, I do, and you don't notice it until you actually speak, or you have a conversation, or you're actually put in a situation where you speak those boundaries out. But anyway, he was introducing me to everybody, and I'm like, hi, I'm a hugger. Hello. Oh, you should, I want you, I got their number, so you should get their number. You should get it. And I was like, oh, wait, oh, I'm a hugger. I'm a lover, but I can't, just connect in that way. My number is I can't just, and I had to even learn that, because in the beginning, when first meeting people on a natural level, I would just, and this was many years ago, I just felt like, because of my experience. Now, see, here you come. Sometimes we're going to hit that. We can open ourselves up and give too much access due to hurt or an experience that we had where we got little access when we needed more access. Is that making sense? The time that you were supposed to have with someone that said that they cared about you, they didn't. So you vow within your heart and within your mind that, oh, I'm never going to do anybody like they did me. I'm going to take time out for people. I'm going to be there for people. I'm not going to say, I'm too tired. You put all of this self-applied pressure on yourself and don't even know that you're doing it, because that's not you speaking. You don't even know if you have the capacity to be there. Yes, you're going to pump the brakes. You don't even know if you're going to have the capacity, but you're speaking out of hurt. You're speaking out of that experience. And nowhere in what you're saying is there a boundary. Oh, I'm just going to be open for anybody to talk to, and for them, to come in, and, for them to, and meet, and I'm going to just let them in my space because I know how it feels to be rejected. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into, that later on, about, dealing with rejection or encountering and setting boundaries with those, and identifying whether or not this is someone who had, yes, Jaquel, it's trauma responses from hurt, from abandonment, from rejection, those type of things. So sometimes people are demonizing people like, oh my goodness, they just, went off. I just told them I wasn't available, and they just went on and start talking about me and start saying, and she's supposed to be, and he's supposed to be, and they supposed to be, and they ain't even take the time to sit with me. And now my life now, is now it's the victim into all these other things. And now you're like, oh, it's a form of manipulation. Okay? Because that's where we're gonna get into all of that, because pain and hurt undealt with turns to bitterness. It turns to a whole lot of things. And so when you're moving in and you're opening your doors and you're doing ministry and you're working on teams and all of these other things, you have to understand. And that's why trainings are important. That's why having personal boundaries are important. That's why setting boundaries within organizations are important. Listen, that's why even altar workers have boundaries. Listen, so that you can protect the person, so that they can be protected, so that you know and they know what is in your capacity to give. Don't speak too much. Sometimes you have to say, wait a minute, before I can say yes to that, before I could take you on or take on another mentor or take on another auxiliary, before I could take on, another adventure, before I can pick you up from here and commit to, but I'm your daughter. Listen, it might be some people who feel entitled, and it's okay. That's why we're going to coach our way. We're going to get out of this. Okay. All right. That may feel, but you're my mom, but you're my sister. You should. You're supposed to, and so we put this pressure on ourselves, on others, and we don't set the proper boundaries. Don't you see me? Don't you see me? I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And not saying that they shouldn't help you. Not saying that you shouldn't help them. But you have to know what is in your capacity. And it is healthy, again, to set those boundaries. Boundaries aren't just for strangers. Boundaries, again, listen, for mother, father, sister, brother, aunt Ray Ray, Uncle Jojo, cousin Lily, Tyrone, all of them. Listen, some of you all, you might be here because you're like, okay, I really needed to get in here and really hear about these. I needed to hear about these, boundaries, because I'm receiving a little kickback and a little frustration from some that I had to tell no due to whatever reason. Maybe it's your job. Maybe you're newly married. Maybe there's a business venture you're going on, whatever it may be. But another reason why some people get frustrated and might be frustrated, with you, is because they no longer have the access that they did or they used to in your life. We have to understand that even in relationships, that the nature of the relationship may change as you grow, as you mature, as you go into working, as you go into pursuing those things that God has called you to. There are going to be natural shifts that take place. Go ahead and type in natural shifts. Natural shifts. There are going to be natural shifts that are going to take place in your life. And if you can identify some of those natural shifts that have taken place in your life, some major transitions that took place in your life. Maybe it was a move. Maybe you got married. Maybe you're planning to relocate. All of that. Take some time to look over, write them down if you have your pad and paper, and recognize, because some of you might be a little off balance. You might be not understanding why all of the things that you set in place or the things that you have been doing all this time, now it seems like it might be too much. Now you're feeling a little frustrated, and it's because maybe a natural shift have taken place, and natural shifts are not, very a wow factor. It's like, oh, I got, promoted, but you don't think, okay, this means more work. This means, and some of you are even, you've had life-changing events. Maybe your last name has changed or whatever. And sometimes when we do things like that, we don't even consider, or even throughout the courtship phase or whatever, we don't consider, we take this mindset that we had when we didn't have the responsibilities that we had while we were single, or while we didn't have a job, or while we weren't in school, or when we had a whole lot of time. And then we speak out things out of our mouths sometimes and say, and I'm going to keep everything the same. Who's done that? And I'm a kid, girl, don't worry. I'm getting married, but we still gonna talk every single day on Saturdays. Our day is still gonna be Tuesday all our life. You making covenants and promises, not even knowing. Listen, what does the scripture say? Only the Lord knows the plans. Many are the plans in a man's heart. Listen, but it's the Lord's plan that's gonna prevail. And so we don't take an account that day to day, there are certain things and certain natural shifts or even intentional shifts that are going to take place in our life. And so we can't just go around blurting out or speaking that I'm not going to change and I'm not, you gotta change. You have to change. You're going to have to evolve. You're going to have to grow. Listen, and make some adjustments. And with those shifts, whether they're natural or intentional, you are going to have to set boundaries. So boundaries may change. You may have had more free time here. You may have felt comfortable. You may have been able to do a lot of stuff that you were doing, chilling, chillaxing, Netflix and chill or whatever you was doing before, but now your purpose is requiring another level of sacrifice and drive and discipline. And so now it's not that you're being mean. It's not that you just don't want to hang out no more. It's not that, you just don't have time. It's just that you had a shift in your life. It's just that now you see where you need to set some boundaries in place. Those boundaries have shifted. Before I could do this, but now I can't. And so when we try to continue to maintain the momentum and the flow that we have been, when those shifts have taken place in our lives, you get frustrated. The people that are connected with you are frustrated. Sometimes you have to reschedule your schedule. You have to move some things around so that it fits with your purpose. So it fits with what it is that you're doing. So it fits with your values, which we are going to talk about. Okay. So we have to maintain boundaries. Boundaries are not just placed upon people or within situations, but boundaries are also placed on voices. I like this one. Somebody say, you got to put boundaries on the voices in your life. I'm gonna have to wait for that for 1 second. I'm gonna wait for you to talk it out. I'm gonna wait for you to type it out. Boundaries are not just for situations. Boundaries are not just for people, but they are boundaries. You have to put boundaries on some of the voices in your life. For example, you may have a good mother, a good father, or a not so good mother or not so good father, but you have to understand that I gave the example of a parent because their voice represents authority. Their voice represents influence. Their voice represents and offers direction. It offers clarity. I see you all typing it in. It offers correction. Okay. And so you got to put boundaries on those voices, certain ones. Not everybody and every person can be or remain that voice in your life. And it's not because they always said something wrong. It's not always because they talk slick to you. It's not always because you're just older now and you just don't want to hear what I got to say. You can listen to everybody else and you just familiar with me. Sometimes it absolutely is familiarity, but sometimes it's not just because you don't or they don't want to hear you, mom. They don't want to hear you, dad, or they don't want to hear you, friend. Sometimes it is that because you're telling them the truth, but that's not always the case. You have to respect when someone has set a boundary, and others have to respect when you have set a boundary as it pertains to their voice. Of course, like we said, it's not always that they said something wrong. It is that sometimes the voice needs to be changed because the season and your purpose demands it. Okay? You hear that? You got that? You got that? Sometimes the voice needs to be changed because the season, the timing, and your purpose is demanding it, is demanding it, is demanding it. So don't be offended that, your voice is no longer an influence. Don't get mad because you're no longer the person that they come to. You're not their superwoman. Come on, you're not their superman. The boundaries that they've created are protecting you and themselves so that they stay in the flow that they need to pursue their purpose, and so that the voice, so that the one that's supposed to respond to your voice now in this season can get that access. Now that they can shift, now they can come in and take that spot, and it's a smooth transition. It's not any jealousy, it's not any anger, it's not any confusion. And we're going to really setting up how you properly place those boundaries, because sometimes it doesn't have to be verbally said. Sometimes you can establish boundaries without really saying much. Okay? For an example, if you're one where it's just like, okay, I'm getting, I'll say, look, I'll say for telemarketers, let's just say like that. Telemarketers, they call your phone, your cell phone, all of that, all times of the day. They don't respect boundaries. They call you trying to act like, hello, Nicole. Yes. Are you interested in, this trip? Listen, y'all are crossing boundaries. So what I do sometimes, with telemarketers, I have to, go ahead and, block the numbers as the little marketing texts come in. Sometimes I have to go ahead and, make some adjustments. Sometimes, if I know that, I'm doing something or whatever like that, and I'm going to be calls, what I do is I put it on silent. I put my phone on silent. I turn off that notification. If I'm doing something, if I need to focus on something, and I'm not going to move. You have to make a decision that you're not going to just move and respond to every single call. You're not going to give attention to every single thing and person and situation that pulls on you. I'm not talking about ignoring people. I'm not talking about doing what you're doing and then 35 weeks later, you just like, oh yeah, I got it last month. I got it last month. You know what I'm saying? No, that's not what we're talking about. But when we properly set boundaries and we say, yes, they can be disrespectful. When we say, hey, this is the times that I'm available. This is the time that I can talk. Or when you stay consistent with something. And of course, when someone knows you, those boundaries, don't think that just because you're familiar with the person that, oh, you just automatically know you, you automatically know them. And sometimes you can just, you can say, oh, I just know how they are. No, you know their boundaries. You know their boundaries. So you don't call at this time. You don't ask them to do certain things. You don't ask them to participate in certain things. If you need something, they're a good person and they love you and y'all are good. But as it pertains to this, they're not going to do that, or they can't do that, and so you're going to have consideration for one another, but you're never going to label someone as an enemy or not being a friend or not being there for you because they have set a boundary in place, or because you see those boundaries, because they don't get right back to you. Now, of course, again, setting boundaries have to first go hand in hand with integrity and character. So yes, you're going to call them back at a certain time. Yes, if you can't talk right now, you're going to shoot a text and say, hey, when you have the time. But you're not going to be racking your brain and walking on eggshells and saying, hey, if I don't text this person back, they're going to be texting me saying, what's wrong? Did I do something to you? Did I, so that means that, and that's a whole nother thing, that that you have to, and it goes back to, again, some people have dealt with some different trauma and have dealt with some different things within their life that may be causing them to be, clingy, or come up with all of these scenarios and reasons why you aren't answering or responding, and it's just been 2 minutes. And so situations like this can be draining for them and for you. So in that case, sometimes you actually have to establish the relationship, that you have to define the relationship. You need to know, okay, it depends on what the relationship is. If it is one where you're helping someone, if it's just a family kind of relationship, and that's just how this person is, it's a way to still establish certain boundaries, not based upon their response and how they're going to act. Again, boundaries are set to help you. Boundaries are set and boundaries are set, and they allow us to communicate and to define relationships. Relationships are defined through the boundaries. If he thinks that it's no way that he can think or she can think that you all are dating and you are an item if you aren't on the phone all the time, if they don't have your number. Some people a little, cuckoo. You're like, I didn't. But what I'm saying is, when certain boundaries are set in place, is no way that some people, that's like in their right mind, is going to think that it's anything else or get any other perception, because you have clearly defined those boundaries. You don't have my number. We're not going to, the movies. You're not taking me out to dinner. I haven't taken you out to dinner. I've clearly defined the relationship, because sometimes we can verbally define the relationship and those boundaries are saying something else. You're telling me that you don't like to do this or you don't want to do that. But every time I try to go over and step over and cross one of those boundaries, it's redefining the relationship. It's not adding up to what you say that this is. So those boundaries allow us to set limits so that we aren't taken advantage of. That's another reason why we set boundaries, so that we're not taken advantage of, so that we aren't just being pulled on and exhausting ourselves as well. So boundaries also, again, help us to protect our peace. It helps protect our minds, our hearts, and our spirits in a healthy way. Now, this is going to be a groundbreaking perspective for some of you. Some of you may already know or feel this, or it might have already came to your mind, but I believe that this is going to be groundbreaking. Listen, so what's the first requirement? I know how to say, basically, no, I don't want to do this, or no, I don't, want to do that, or I need to do this in order to do that. But the first requirement in setting boundaries starts not just with creating boundaries, but you must see, I want y'all to get this, you must see and know the value of what you are protecting. I'm going to say that again. The first requirement in setting boundaries is that you need to know, you must see and know the value of what you are protecting. You are not going to protect what you do not value. You are not going to protect. I want y'all to write that in. Write it on your notepad and write it up there. Text it out. You're not going to protect what you don't value. I want you to think about that as you're typing that. You're not going to protect what you don't value. And sometimes we use all these external phrases when setting boundaries, like moving forward, I'm going to guard my space. I'm going to, a lot of people, I'm going to guard my space. I'm going to guard my energy, all the sayings that are out there. But When you talk about guarding your space, what is that space? Have you identified that space or what that space is? Is the space the volume in the room? Is the space a chair sitting beside you? And I'm going to pause some time in between this and give you just a second to think about that and to write that down. What is that space? Okay. So because you're going to have to define that space, you're going to have to define that space not just for someone else, but for yourself. You're not, and which is a theme that I've already been saying, you're not just defining that space for someone else, but for yourself. It is not literally the volume in the room, because or your space really that you are protecting, because you have control over what you allow to enter in your mind. And I see Deshauna, she caught the revelation. You have control over what you allow to enter into your mind, regardless of the situation. So when we say I'm protecting like my space, there is a scripture that says, he whose mind is stayed on him, he will keep him in perfect peace. So even when we are in chaotic situations, even when there's a lot of things going on around our space, we still have a boundary. Because why? The scriptures are a boundary. Did you look at that? Scripture is a boundary. When we first learned, when we were younger, some of us in Sunday school, we learned about the armor of God. As I'm homeschooling my kids, listen, I can teach that thing from beginning to end, because the whole year we went over every part of the armor. Everybody had to draw a little stick figure that looks like this, and you got to tape the helmet on. You got to tape the sword in the hand. So I'm like, look. And one of the first things we learned about is the helmet of salvation that protects the mind from what? These thoughts. It protects our minds. So, for our, because that's in our mind, we have to intellectualize and receive salvation. And so when you are creating these boundaries, you have to understand, not only are you creating boundaries, but there are invisible boundaries as Christians, as believers, that are already set in place. So we aren't just, and I'm not saying, I can just go into any environment now, but as you saw, when it pertains to your purpose, when it pertains to God sending you in places or on that job where you are frustrated and where they are getting on your nerves, and they're just running around and acting crazy, you can still be at peace. You can there is a boundary that is set in your mind that causes you not to conform to their behaviors, not to respond. Listen, because when you have peace, you can better respond in situations. So you aren't just protecting your space. We aren't just going anywhere that we want to go and like, the scripture is a boundary. I'm gonna lay in this bed with him. The scripture is a boundary. No, we don't put ourselves in compromising positions. The boundary in that instance is, I don't go over your house after a certain amount of time. And we gotta stop acting like stuff happened at night. It happened during the day. It happened during the afternoon. It can happen in the car. It can happen on the carpet in the back, in the grandmother backyard. That's why it has to be more than you creating these outward boundaries and trying to put yourself in the best situation where you won't cross them. The boundaries are going to be defined by what you value, which is your reason for protecting it. Those boundaries protect what is valuable. Our mind is valuable because without boundaries, we are unstable. We are unstable. You create natural boundaries to protect your mind, your heart, your spirit, which makes up who? You. What makes up you? You must value, and Deshauna, she already put it out there. You must value you. Somebody type, I must value myself. I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting myself. I'm protecting my mind. I'm protecting my heart. I'm protecting my spirit. Because if you do not value you, you're going to struggle to set or enforce the boundaries that you have set in place. You're not going to stick to them. You're not going to stick to them. You might say them, but you won't stick to them. You won't have him or her there physically in your space. Because remember, you done moved them out your space. I'm protecting my space. I'm protecting my space. I ain't calling him. And we get the head. You know, some don't get the head. Some people are very calm. We're all different. We don't always react the same, okay? I'm not calling him. I'm so above that. Do you miss him? Does it look like I miss? Does it look like it? Like, sis, I'm just asking you. You know what I'm saying? Does it look like? I mean, is he here? I'm just saying. Because if I did, he would have been here. But that is not evidence that you have set a boundary just because they are not there, just because they aren't in your space. It can be evidence, but we don't want to trick ourselves and fool ourselves and just settle right there. Well, he or she is not here. And that's the first step. I'm not going to take that from you because that is a lot. That is a lot. I've been there. Where you couldn't even not say I'm not going and you're not coming today, so I'm not going to take that from you. I'm gonna give it back to you. We're going to clap for them. Clap for whoever it is, y'all. Clap for them. But what I'm saying is we don't want to psych ourselves out, and we have to be real with ourselves. We have to be real about and honest about what we are protecting, what we have to know what we are protecting, and we have to literally lay that thing out on the line, because again, you won't have them there. You won't have him and her there physically. Prophetess Kim said, yes, that's right. Self-value will help me to set and keep boundaries. Absolutely. And so you won't have him or her there physically in your space, but you will carry them mentally and in your heart. And this will cause setbacks when you are sticking to your boundaries. Personal boundaries are important because they define your identity. Here we go. We went into, hey, from wait a minute, I thought boundaries were just to cross so I could do this and that. But now, okay, my boundaries reflect my values. And what I value is not just the external things that I'm doing, but I value my body. I value my mind. I value my heart. I value my peace. I value myself. Personal boundaries, if you all could type that in, got a few minutes, are important because they define your identity. Boundaries define your identity. And they point again to what you value. You see how all of this is kind of coming full circle? I become a peaceful person when I'm at peace. And when I value my peace, I protect it. And the only way to protect it is by what? By setting boundaries. Personal boundaries define your identity. What do you mean? Okay, even if we go back, you're like, how is that possible? Because when you identify something as something, those boundaries go hand in hand with the identity of that thing. If you need salt, there's certain attributes of salt. Salt looks a certain way. You identify salt because of its flavor, because of how it looks. You can identify it. If you see something red, you know that isn't salt. So this recipe requires salt. So I've identified it. It's letting me know that if it's not salt, I can't use absolutely anything else for this. It requires salt. So now I've identified that this is salt. We've defined this as salt because of its attributes. And now this only requires this salt. Okay? And so you have to know who you are. You have to value yourself. If you don't know who you are, you don't know your values, you haven't defined yourself as a person. And so let me just put this right here with the personal, testimony. So, I, back in the days, y'all say some years ago, so many years ago, I was dating this guy, and, he was, running in and out of my life. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? It was a whole lot of running in and out, going back and forth. We break up for a few months, and then he called, and I'd be right back right there. He'd go off somewhere else, and he'd be either seeing someone else or I'd be seeing someone else. But it was never me calling him. And I'm thinking, I've kept my dignity as a woman. He's chasing me because, I'm sitting up here chilling. But in reality, I did not have the upper hand. In reality, I was not setting the tone for this relationship because he would call, and I would just look, Octavia, look, I'm coaching Nicole today. Listen. And so, he would just, I was just allowing him to come and get me, but thinking that, kind of feeling special, thinking that, hey, he's chasing after me. But actually, he was using me like a puppet on a puppet on a string. If I really had any type of control when he called, I would say, no, this is, not right now. I'm talking to somebody. I would break up with people and be like, oh, I ain't feeling this no more, and not feel bad about it. That was the BC Nicole. Somebody say that was BC, before Christ. Okay. So I'm just like, hey, I didn't set those boundaries. And so whether I was single or with somebody or whatever, I was just allowing this person to dictate my every single move. And you know how that is. I call that an on-call relationship. Somebody say on-call relationship. Y'all ever been in an on-call relationship? It's okay. It's not okay, but I'm saying is, don't feel bad if you had been there. And if you are there, look, we're going to set some boundaries and we're going to get you free and get you up out of that, okay? So an on-call relationship is just what it sounds like. Just what it sounds like. You are on call, just like a job. They call you when they need you, when they, when they need you to work, when they need you to do something, and then you have to drop everything that you got to do. But, I realized after coming to Christ, because that same one tried it when I actually gave my life to God, and I was moving forward in, in my purpose and all of those things. And he tried to come back with the same tactics, sometimes those same tests that you go through and that you listen 24/7, Christy Shay, look here. Listen, those same things that you had struggled with before, you can't think that because now you're living different and you're thinking different and you're free, that those same tests aren't going to come back again. So he was a test. He was a test, and it was beyond just him. It was a test of what I valued. Okay? And sometimes you have to find the value of self in Christ. You have to find your identity in Christ. And you have to set and create those values, not based upon even who you think you are, until you have a revelation of who you truly are in Christ. Because I didn't realize that I was not valuing myself. I thought because I didn't stoop down low enough to do this certain type of thing that I valued myself. But I began to see through not setting certain boundaries in place that I was not protecting myself, because, it was a hard truth to come to, that wow, you're not valuing yourself. You're not valuing yourself. A sign of you not valuing yourself is not feeling good about yourself if they aren't there, if you don't have this, if you're not wearing this, if some type of outside material thing or person is not there, or you don't have it. You do not have a true sense of that scripture that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so as I realized that, okay, this is not okay, because I was looking at how, okay, if this person come, I'm not trying to, fall into, sexual sin with this person. But it was greater than that, because sometimes we can try to define the value, the boundaries based upon our limited view or perspective of a thing. We say, okay, I don't want to do this, so I'll place that boundary right here, where it needs to be a greater boundary. There needs to be greater boundaries that need to be there, other than you're not going to come over at 9:00, other than you can't call me at this time. And so I began to understand, and I realized that only God should have that influence and that authority in my life. Again, only God should have that influence. The influence, what do you mean? He ain't influencing me. He didn't put my hand behind my neck and my head, or she didn't put my hand behind my back and make me come over. No. If someone can influence you to do wrong or abandon your values and cause you not to protect the thing that you should value, you are being influenced. You're being influenced. And so I realized that God, again, should only have that influence and authority in my life. And I realized that there was no room, being on-call friendship, relationship, whatever was trying to be defined, that I hadn't even agreed to. Because sometimes we can agree to certain things and we have not defined, or we have not spoken. But they have been created because there are no boundaries. Do you get what I'm saying? You never verbally agreed to it, but your lack of boundaries has established it. Okay? And so I realized there was no room for me to make any real decisions. So one day I got tired of going with the back and the forth. I knew that God had told me certain things, tricks are for kids. I was tired of eating them for breakfast. And I got me some boundaries. And this gave me time. Those boundaries gave me time. Will give you time. Will give us time to reflect. It gives us a time of self-reflection. It gave me time to learn about me. It gave me time, those boundaries, saying, okay, you can't call me. I don't think that we should talk. I'm not going out with you. I need, I establish some boundaries. You can't just say you want to call or pop up and call But then you can't tell somebody you can't just pop up and call and pop up in and out and they gave your number. You have blurred the lines. So now you're putting boundaries in place, but also removing the boundaries. You can't put the boundaries, remove the boundaries, put the, you know what I'm saying? You have to, when you make a vow to yourself, your boundary is a vow because you're protecting what you value. And so you can't just put the boundary there and remove it just because you put the boundary there. You have to clearly define and understand why you put the boundary there in the first place. If this boundary is breached, what are the consequences? Why did I put this boundary here in place from the beginning? Why? Not just, okay, I have a boundary. Clearly define why. Why did I set this boundary? Why do I need this boundary? What are the consequences of removing or continuously allowing this boundary to be crossed? So when you set boundaries, you give yourself time to self-reflect, to create, to learn about you. I learned my likes, I learned my dislikes, and what I was no longer willing to accept. Those boundaries gave me the strength and also allowed me to kind of detox. Because listen, when you've been away from something for a certain amount of time and you begin to see your value and you begin to love your peace, you look at that thing that you were allowing to cross all these boundaries and that you were given access into your life. You begin to look at that thing like with no desire, And you know how, like I said, when you're away from something, you learn how to live without it. You learn that you really didn't need it. You learned how it was not serving you or your purpose. Or, whatever it is that you know that, you have to do. It was draining your time. It was not adding to your life. And so not only did that boundary give me time to self-reflect, not only did it give it time, because you can write those down, boundaries give me time to self-reflect. They give me time to learn about myself, to learn my likes and dislikes. They give you strength. That the strength that you need once you know what you are willing and no longer willing to accept. Because we can talk. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. When you say I'm tired of this, that means that you don't want to accept it. But some people, they say I'm tired, but they're saying out of their mouth they're tired. Remember, a double-minded man or a woman is unstable in all their ways. The heart, the mind, the spirit, they're not on one accord. Because why? There's no boundaries. Boundaries is the foundation of stability, of mental stability, of the stability of your heart, of your mind, of your spirit. And so this boundary not only gave me time to get the strength that I needed to align with what I was saying out my mouth, that I was tired of this. I'm tired of this relationship. I'm tired of the back and forth. Now that boundary gave me the strength to keep my own word, to see my value, and also allowed me to not go back again on my word and what I said, but let my yay be yay, my nay be nay, my hey be hey, my no be no, my block be block, my phone number change be my phone number change, and not give them the new number that I just changed. You got to set boundaries. You got to set boundaries. Oh, girl, I gave him your number because you know how you be saying you don't want to talk to him, but then you be talking to him. So when he asked me, I just gave it. No, you crossed a boundary. And see, you can teach people by your behavior not to respect your boundaries, not to respect your boundaries. Not to, oh, I didn't want to check on this. I didn't want to say nothing. Sometimes, some get a little passive and they don't, I don't want to hurt their feelings, and I don't want to tell them that they crossed, a boundary because I don't want to hurt them, but you want to stay hurt. No, if a person, sometimes they don't know that they've crossed your boundary. Some people know that they have. Some people absolutely know that they have, but it's because you don't reintroduce that boundary, or verbally. Now it's time to confront it and verbally communicate what that boundary is and what it looks like. But you first have to know what it looks like. You have to be able to properly communicate it to it. Communicate it not just with your mouth, but with your actions. Remember, because those boundaries, when your mind is made up, everything else is going to fall into place. Everything's going to fall into place. The boundary created enough space for me to really see what I was dealing with. When you set order, my. Somebody say, my, coach. Listen, I might not, you might not have me hired as your coach, but I'm your coach while you on alive, all right? My, coach. Listen. The boundary created enough space for me to really see what I was dealing with. Because when you set some order in situations and around people, the behavior will at times change. It will sometimes change. And it's okay. Let the change happen. Oh, I don't want to set this boundary because I don't want them to feel like, or for them to do, or for them to think that I don't want them to get mad at. Listen, when you create the boundary, I'm just, Nicole, Coach Nicole told me to go and set some boundaries. I went up there and I set the boundaries. I properly communicated it. I was nice. I was just in the other. Now I got blocks. Now, you know what I'm saying? It's DMs about me. Listen, I'm just letting you know right now that if the other person has a issue with others creating boundaries that are going to be beneficial for the both of you. It's not, when somebody creates a boundary, it's not a block in between you two. Like I said, a husband and wife need boundaries. Children and parents need boundaries. Okay? One day, when I met my husband, he came with his own set of boundaries. We were both courting and we were in the courting process, but he had, again, his own boundaries. He couldn't hold my hand at first. I was like, okay, this is weird. This is strange. I've never heard of that. What is a palm going to do? You know what I'm saying? What is a palm going to do? What is a fingertip going to do? Like, really? But no, I didn't even act like that. It was different. The boundaries were different than mine, but I didn't question his boundaries, no matter if it wasn't a boundary that I didn't need to set for myself, because sometimes we can judge people. We can, just look down upon people because their boundaries are different from ours. You are not, listen, say, I'm not gonna have the same boundaries as you have. That does not make you better, and that does not make me better. That just means that we're two different people. We have two different purposes. We're wired differently. Things affect me differently. I respond to things differently. And so, like I said, even though it wasn't a boundary that I felt or even ever thought that I would need to have set in place, because, for me, once I finally, rested in the idea of going ahead and getting married and, now I'm courting or whatever, you're finally here. Of course, we aren't looking, we're looking to, wait to consummate our marriage, after we actually get married. I'm thinking, okay, now we can hold hands. Now we can, he's like, no, I don't hold no hands. I mean, he ain't do like that, but he was like, no, I can't hold no hands. I can't, I can't hold no hands. And I respected his boundaries. I didn't question it. I didn't make him feel bad about it. I didn't tease him about it. I tease him now because it's over with or whatever. But not tease, but lovingly, like, boy, I can't even hold your hand. But no, if that wasn't a boundary I didn't need to set for myself, or not ones that we set for ourselves, we do not shame others' boundaries, okay? I did not question them because I knew his boundaries reflected his value and commitment to God. And that showed me his character. So through his boundaries, I was able to see the character that he has. I was able to see his integrity through his boundaries. And this is the same when we set boundaries for ourselves. People, we won't even have to verbally say it. People can tell what we value. They can tell if we value ourselves by the boundaries that we create. How we speak, how we carry ourselves, what we decide to put on our bodies, what we decide to post, how we decide to respond to one another. The decisions that we make in secret that no one knows are all a reflection of our value for ourselves. And as believers, because I'm a faith-based coach, our commitment to God. This boundaries was showing me all that. He came with his own boundaries because he has his own relationship. His boundaries were not offensive. His boundaries were not offensive. His boundaries were not offensive because I realized that his boundaries also protected me. They were different from mine. They didn't look like mine, but they protected me from him and him from him. Listen, but no, we protect one another in relationships with having boundaries. So your boundaries aren't just for you. They are for those that you are in a relationship. So setting boundaries give you a stable foundation. Setting boundaries allow you not to just make hasty decisions and be moved by your emotions, okay? You don't set boundaries based upon your emotions, but by what you value. By what you value, not your emotions. Oh, she got on my nerves. Now I ain't. Oh, he got on my nerves. Oh, no. I'm setting this boundary based upon the peace that I need, based upon, that I need to guard my heart. I need to set this boundary for myself because the heart is desperately wicked. Because out of the heart, the issues of life flow. I understand that, when there is a boundaryless life, it causes double-mindedness. So instead of sounding the boundaries that we know we should in order to protect ourselves, sometimes we don't. And this is why sometimes we don't. Sometimes it may be that protecting what we value requires greater discipline, although it provides long-term fulfillment. This is a generation. Listen, I won't even say this is a generation. This is a flesh thing. This is a sin nature thing. You know what I'm saying? This is this is something totally different. But we all, in some ways, love for things to happen quickly. We want quick satisfaction. We want things to change and to turn around suddenly. But when it comes to protecting what we value, it takes a greater discipline. It takes it takes not only, setting them, but enforcing them, but defining them. It takes you not crossing them. And it can be a lot. And so having no boundaries allow us to quickly satisfy what the heart wants, the desperate heart. the wicked heart. Listen, the double-minded heart. Listen. And so boundaries help us to see what we value and go along with helping us to create a clean heart. Listen, because remember, the scripture is also a boundary. And so no boundaries allow us to quickly satisfy what the heart wants, even to the neglect of our value system, which is protected by the boundaries that are now in place. Now, people can set boundaries. They can set boundaries for you and you can set boundaries for them. But people, that doesn't mean that people are going to recognize your value. And I see that issue. Sometimes we can think that a man or a woman, respects us and they recognizes and they see your worth. They see your value just because they honored your decision to set that boundary. No. It does not mean that he or she, and that's why some people lower the boundary again. They move the boundary back. Oh, they learned their lesson because, they respected the boundary. So now they respect me. They value me. No, they don't. That doesn't mean that he or she recognizes your value. It means he or she is acknowledging the boundary. So there's a difference, because you don't want anybody to cross the boundary. If the boundary is set, then like I said, boundaries can be adjusted. When you're courting someone, that's a certain boundaries that you have, so you don't go too far. Not only in the area of getting a little too frisky, you know what I'm saying, but there's other things. There might be jokes you may have. That's why when you get to learn someone, you get to learn their boundaries. Hey, I don't like joking like this. So I didn't like what you said when you said X, Y, and Z. That is establishing a boundary. And those who respect that boundary are going to apologize. It's a certain response that you're going to get when someone values you, when someone values how you feel, and they value those boundaries. If you set a boundary and they don't want to deal with you, well, I ain't going to joke with you no more. Yes, you're acknowledging the value, but you're not trying to, and they don't have to understand. But that's not someone that I would have to give great access to my life who does not respect me. They aren't going to cross their way of acknowledging the boundary is by ghosting you. No, absolutely not. And then when I want to come back in, I can't. No, this ain't no on-call relationship either. This ain't on-call. This ain't assisted living. You got the wrong number. He gonna be like, what? She gonna be like, what? No, we're gonna properly communicate them, okay? We're not gonna, don't go out there and say, this ain't assisted living, but we had those conversations. So you're saying, okay, look, okay. So we've already established that just because someone acknowledges the boundary, it doesn't mean that they value you. How can you tell someone respects your values? Well, here is why. They don't question your values. They don't question your values. They don't respond to you in a negative way. Like I said, when my husband came and told me, I can't hold your hand, I understood. We have different boundaries, but they're all benefiting us because we share the same values. So sometimes we have to set different boundaries in place in order to work towards the same goal. That's how it is with a team. That's how it is in ministry. That's how it is as, when we're moving forward in our projects, in our businesses, even as people of God in the kingdom. A lot of people, even Christians, we have issues with respecting one another's boundaries because we feel that a boundary is sort of, taking me back, or I'm shying away because I put that boundary. But no, as I said, boundaries help us to move and progress in the same direction. It helps us both to get the fulfillment that we need out of the relationship and or to accomplish whatever goal we need to accomplish within the relationship. And also, again, that's why you have to define the relationship, which we will get into at another time. So yes, we are basically about to just go ahead and wrap this up. I hope that you have been enjoying this. I see you all, have come on with me. I have one little other thing that I want to share with you, and then we're going to go on. And so I'm just going to leave you with this. So, we've been talking a lot about boundaries. Boundaries, that's the word for the day, boundaries, okay? And so we've been talking about how important it is to set those boundaries. So, you have to think about it. You have to, use practical application. If I'm a cranky person in the morning, okay? Don't try to hide yourself from people that you want to give access to your life, that you want to give love to, that you want to get to know. Let them know who you are. Let them know what your boundaries are. And see, remember, you're not that Superwoman. You're not that Superman. Don't try to give anyone, any man, any woman, a different version of you, because that's going to set you up for failure. It's going to set you up for failure, because they're going to meet this version that you had that might appear to have a little bit more access than what you really have, or a different set of value systems than what you really have, because they caught you on a bad day, or they caught you, at this time when you was just feeling good or whatever. I don't want to show him this part, of myself. So then he doesn't know, or she doesn't know the values, or not your values, but it is a value. Because if you're a cranky person in the morning, and just because you're trying to get to know him and look cute, and just because you just having butterflies and you just want to talk to him, you answer on the phone, you know what I'm saying, you try to get the frog out your throat. Hello. Hello. You know what I'm saying? You gargling in the morning, getting yourself all together. Hello. Oh my goodness. Hi. Hi, Greg. How? No, nothing. I was just sitting here reading the Bible. I was just sitting here, cleaning up. You were still in the bed. You didn't put on your best voice. And Greg don't know that you really cranky in the morning, that you cranky, you don't like mornings. And some of y'all are just like, Coach Nicole, that ain't me, honey. I tell him, I just met you, Greg, but I am not a morning person. I ain't answer. I called Greg back by 12:30 when I woke up, took off my bonnet, brushed my teeth. You know what I'm saying? Greg just gonna have to understand. Now, some just don't have a problem with establishing those boundaries, but sometimes we do. Sometimes we are a little extra when we meet people. In romantic relationships and friendships, sometimes we can give a little bit more and do a little bit more because it's new, because it's fresh. Just like with a newborn baby. A newborn baby, you have all these boundaries. Don't touch his hands. Don't touch her hands. Put her mitts on. Don't breathe on her. This was before COVID. Don't breathe on them. You know what I'm saying? I don't want them to get a cold. You know what I'm saying? Put something over them. Don't even look at them, because they might get sick if you just look at them. We have all these different boundaries that we set in place when something is new, even with the new marriage. Oh my goodness, we just got married. We're nesting. Nobody called me for like a month. You guys, we are not going to get together again until next August. This is our time together. Girl, you can't be calling me after 6 p.m. I have to make dinner for the hubby. Okay? And so you were doing all this stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we're flowing. And then boom, the real you. Not that you was fronting, it was new. It was new. And so you kind of let a little bit more than you really would do because it was new. Because when that baby get a little bit older, you're less concerned about now they touching the hands, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, listen, they 6 months now. They hands and everything. They in grass. They trying to eat sand. They slip. Oh, girl, we've been married for a year. What you do? Oh, I ain't call you. You know what I'm saying? Girl, you can call me. When I ever say you can't call me? Girl, I ain't never been like that. So then now you in hobby tripping, y'all, because you didn't slip down on those boundaries, and you've forgotten what you were protecting. Now, like I said, with the baby, you're not as conscious as you were before because they're older, their immune system is got. So some things you can let up. You can, give a little room to stretch and, readjust those boundaries, but some need to be there. Some you need to understand, because some people like, oh, well, we were just getting to know each other. No, I don't understand that. You got to be like that all the time. You got to be like that all the time. You got to be happy when you call me in the morning all the time. Yes, they're trying to give it an impression of something different. And sometimes it's not always your intention to do that. But see, when you set out and you have really defined those relationships, when you take time as a woman or as a man and you write out those things to you, I want you all to do this. I want you to write out those things that you value. Write out those things that you value in a relationship. They don't have to be here. They don't have to be present in your life. They don't have to be, you don't have to have the engagement ring on your finger. Now, it's good to think about these things. It's good to write out these things in relationships. I don't think that, not everyone have been taught about that. This is something that we should start having a good discussion with our families. This is something that we should start having a discussion with our kids. I started this discussion when they was little because, those of you who have children, they try to bust in the bathroom on you. Listen, I had to get Bugs Bunny on you. They try to come up in the bathroom. Kids will cross some boundaries. You say, look, I'm using the bathroom. You see little fingers under the door. They're sticking pencils. Look, this is a boundary cross. What is the Ticonderoga HB2, my first pencil doing in my office? What is it doing in my boundaries crossed all over out in here in these streets? When I clearly say, don't come in my room. Don't touch this. But like I said, kids, they, and so when they were doing that, but guess what? When they were younger and they're little and you're trying to juggle all these different things. And yes, my sons are young men and think they can. Listen, you sitting up here, you got to take a shower when they're little or infants and you got them on the floor in a car seat turned away so they can't see you and you're trying to hurry up and wash off. And then it just, then they get 2 and 3 and then they turn, I'm not talking about you out here, as you came into the world naked in front of your kids, but I'm like, it gets to a certain point, maybe at certain times, it depends, depending on your experience, you may have never taken baths with your children at all, but it's certain things that certain boundaries have to be set in place to protect them, even if they feel comfortable with you, so that they can know that this is not okay. Because sometimes we can think, okay, it's okay with you. And sometimes they can interpret that as it's okay with everybody else. So again, these boundaries are not only protecting them and giving me time to use the bathroom on my own, have my me time, have my little space. You know what I'm saying? It's also, like I said, freeing me up to do what I need to do and take care of my business and letting them know that in life there's going to be boundaries. And so I had to reestablish that boundary. You can't come in the bathroom with me. And so I started, as they got older, I started locking the door. My daughter still does it with her grown self. Listen, Diamond. I called her name out. Hey, girl. But listen, Yvonne said, I remember those days. Listen here. And so have you ever done this? Have you ever done this one? Have you ever set a boundary with your kids and removed it? So in a small way, like I said, when they got, I used to lock the door. So when they were smaller, it's like I'm locking the door because my husband could be in a room and they still try to come in. Mommy, as they're turning the door on. Mommy. And so I locked the door. So they couldn't come in. That established a boundary. Don't come in when I'm in the bathroom. And I'm gonna take an extra step in locking the door. But guess what I did? Taught them how to unlock the door. Taught them how to unlock the door. Why? Because one day I was lazy and they feel like getting up. Because most of the places that I lived in, the bathroom, it was kind of like a Jack and Jill situation, and it was in my room. So, if I'm in the bathroom, I lock that door. If I'm in my room and I'm chilling or something like that, or I need to come out the bathroom and I don't have clothes on or whatever, I'll lock the door, might forget. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to teach you how to unlock the door. So, in case of emergency or whatever, God forbid I'm in here unresponsive, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? Anything, how to unlock this door. So they little fingers Now, I done taught them how to cross another boundary. So now they unlocking doors and coming in after I say don't lock the door. So now I got to start all, no, don't unlock the door. So now they confused. What? I can't win for losing with this. Lock the door. Taught me how to pick the lock. Don't lock the, I don't get it. And this is how we do. This is how we do. And so this is when it comes to, you know, making those explanations, you know, you can do it for this, but you can't do it for that. And some boundaries can be explained that way. Only come in here when this, only come in here when I tell you to, only use this when you ask, etc., etc. And then some boundaries just need to stay there. Some of them just need to stay there. Okay, just like the ones with the ex or the kid's father or the mother, the kid's mother. Some of those boundaries need to be established and need to be set because some people don't feel like they need any boundaries. I won't need any boundaries. We good. We good. Well, we good. We good. You know, they just pop up. They just come over. Or do you have a family member or something? I used to be that family member. I can't believe that I did that. I used to be a popper-upper. Not at all of my aunt's house. It was just this one aunt that I felt the closest to. And I'm realizing like now, right here in this moment on this live, that I might have been crossing some boundaries. Like I just show up on her house at her house. Oh, that's it. What up? You know what I'm saying? And just take my stay there. Just take my stay there because she wouldn't say anything. Like that's just, you know, I don't know any other cousin in my family that really did that or could do that, or even if they could do that. Now I did ask, like, can I stay tonight or whatever, but I never asked if I could come over. I would show up at her house. I'd show up, Nessa, you know what I'm saying, and be in there all day, you know what I'm saying, or whatever like that. And she was already one of the aunts that had all of the family members, look, Jules said guilty. Listen, had all of the family, she already was overextending herself and taking care of so many others and stuff like that. And so when I stayed the night, that meant somebody had to share their bed or share their room, you know. So I was moving my stuff up in there, this, that, and the other. It was just like, Nicole, you were a boundary crosser. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes, even as Christians, even as believers, sometimes we can feel bad, you know, for setting boundaries for people who are like that. If someone needs somewhere to stay, if someone, you know, no, I'm not supposed to turn anyone away. I'm supposed to let everybody in my house. And then crazy stuff happens because you didn't properly assess the situation and set proper boundaries. You know, like I said, someone that keeps showing up like I used to do. I will never do that. And I would not, if you come to my house unannounced, you gonna talk. The woman of God didn't let me in her house. Listen, she came to the door. Listen, you coming up, showing up, don't answer the door. When they see you now, they done told you don't come here. They done told you and established a boundary. Look, call, yeah, just next time they said it night. Next time, just call me before you come. All right, call me before you come next time. You got my number? Is programmed in? 912 70. Yeah. Let me know. Yeah, because you can come over. All you heard was you can come over. No room at the inn. Listen, you heard that one thing and you went with it. They didn't establish a boundary, or you didn't told them. You didn't establish the boundary. But little cousin, little auntie, little exie come to the door anyway. So now you don't peek out the window. Now you don't come to the door. Now they trying to demonize you because you won't let them cross those boundaries. Some will even call your boundaries ungodly, which we will hit next week. And look at the life of Jesus. For those who feel like boundaries are unnecessary, that you're supposed to just give everybody access to your life, that you're not supposed to have a break, that you are not supposed to, it's a sign of weakness of being unavailable and not being able to handle or juggle or be everything, or be a Superman or Superwoman for everybody. Listen, before we get to next week, I'm gonna hit you off with one of these scriptures right here and see how in Proverbs 25:16 the scripture gives us boundary, even to those people that try to pop up, you know what I'm saying, pop up in your life, you know what I'm saying, pop up, in spaces where they know that they aren't authorized. Listen, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you. Yep, Proverbs 25:16. Let your foot be seldom. Look, they telling you, okay, set this boundary. Set this boundary. Create this boundary. Recognize their boundaries. Understand. You keep on showing up. People need boundaries. People need space. People need time. You cannot hold the sense of entitlement or allow people to have this sense of entitlement and feel as though they can have access to your life at any given point, at any given time, when they so desire. Boundaries have to be set in place. So some of you might have to go back and write some boundaries. Like I said, you might feel like, hey, it's good for me and it's good for us. And even transitioning, like I said before, if you share kids with someone, you have to establish what that boundary looks like. If you have parted ways, but you're still going to be co-parenting with the children, you have to set those boundaries. Some people say, hey, I don't need to really set no boundaries. They my kids and they need this and they need that. And they going to get everything normal. And I ain't going to do this and I ain't going to do that. And then you do not create a space for anyone new to come in your life if that's what you so desire, because you have not properly set the correct boundaries. Your children can still benefit from the relationships and coming together even with those boundaries. There's some who may feel entitled to your life because of your relationship with them. There are some mothers, there's some fathers, there's some, friends that feel entitled, to your life or access to you or talents or gifts or things that you do. You never assume that you can just get whatever it is that you want because of your position. Now, some people you just know, I can ask them that. I can, or this, or this, that, and the other. But how you ask is it reveals it reveals your value of them, your value of what they do, the value of their time, of their efforts, and all of those things. And so when boundaries aren't clearly set and verbally communicated, but on top of that, the relationships aren't defined or redefined, there almost always will be a boundary crossed. Somebody say, boundaries are necessary. Okay? So we have covered a whole lot, way more than I thought that we was going to cover today. Listen, y'all had me cracking up. Y'all had me laughing. I saw y'all comments down there. I saw it. I hope that you enjoyed my very first live discussion. Very first live discussion on this coaching series on boundaries. So I'm going to meet you all here at the same time, maybe not the same time. We'll see. This was a little, listen, no, we'll meet at the same time. I want to make it consistent, okay? On Monday at 1:30 p.m. And we're going to go into part 2 of this, where we really get into defining relationships, the importance of finding relationships, and all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, all of you all, Jaquel, Deshauna, Jules, Christy, Octavia, Yvonne, Prophetess Kim, all of you all that I didn't catch, and again that will be coming in. Please share this with someone else. I hope that it really helps them. I'm also going to have some, for those of you, Jules is one of my my long time that's my sister and one of my longtime coaching clients. So she understands what this is. And some of you on here I've probably also coached before as well in a personal one-on-one setting. But yes, I do offer one-on-one sessions. I never stopped doing the one-on-one coaching. I had not been so forthcoming about it because I had been juggling so many other things. So I've never stopped doing the coaching. I'm going to be kicking back up with doing and offering group sessions. So for those of you all who have a business, maybe you have some friends, maybe you have some family, maybe you have a book club or something, or you have just a topic that you desire to just to get some more insight on. Maybe it's relationships, maybe it's some coaching tools and tips on how to really strive in your singleness, on personal empowerment and personal growth, all those different things. And you're like, hey, I would love to book you for a personal group session. So you also have the opportunity to create with a topic of your choice, to have me coach you in a personal group with a select few that you desire to have in that group, outside of the group sessions that I create myself. And that is something that those who reach out to me for one-on-one sessions would know, because it's within the first greeting and thank you and hello letter and all that good stuff. So that is, again, an option. If you have some girlfriends, you have some sisters, and you're like, oh my goodness, your book, or she had, I love how you just break things down in a practical way about being single, or setting priorities, setting goals, all that. And this group can benefit from that. Give it to somebody for a birthday gift. Listen, hey, the gift of coaching. Do all of that. Listen. And so I still, again, also do one-on-one sessions. So if this resonated with you in some way, and you're like, okay, I need to talk through this, I need to work through this, I need to know what those boundaries and those things look like, and just see if I'm on the right track with this, you can definitely schedule a coaching session. I will have my email in the description after I turn this off. Another thing is, I'm also going to be offering worksheets, and it's field work or worksheets, along with this series. So for a donation of any amount, $5 and up, because you got to set that boundary. That's what it's boundaries all in life. You know what I'm saying? If I say you can do anything, that means you can send a penny. You know what I'm saying? And so there are tailor-made worksheets that I have created and that I'm adding on to this. So while you've been taking your notes and all of that, there may be some things that you didn't actually know how to maybe you didn't know how to actually write it out, or what specific questions that you need to ask yourself, or maybe you don't remember. You've just been going and you've been hearing and taking everything in. So again, along with this, I have some worksheets that will come to you in PDF form, where you can print them out, where you can, and this is what I do when I have group sessions sometimes, or when I have a reoccurring client that is actually working with me for a longer period of time than one day. And so there are certain worksheets that I have created for figuring out your life purpose, identifying your purpose, all those things. But these will be closely related to this. And there will be things like, I have these pulled up in my computer, but yeah, it's going to be about setting boundaries. You're going to be able to, it's a worksheet that we're going to talk about, well, not talk about, it's going to help you to identify energy drainers, all kinds of those things, where you're literally going to be assessing these things and defining them so that you can actually look at it. It's a difference when something is written out and it's written in your face. And so I also have my Cash App at the top so that you can send a donation again of any amount, and I will go ahead and email you. So don't just send it and I don't know who you are, so go ahead and email me as well. And then that way I can go ahead and send over the worksheets. It'll be about 4 worksheets that all are going to help you to really just put everything into perspective, kind of pencil in what it is that we have been going through, so that you can walk out those steps to setting those boundaries, identifying things that are draining you, and seeing after you set the boundary, okay, this boundary was for what? Because again, when God, we talked about in the beginning, when God went ahead and put that sand there as a barrier for the sea, it was so that the sea would not come onto the land. So what is this bound? We don't just set boundaries because, again, our emotions. We have to identify our values. So there'll be a worksheet on identifying our values. What is valuable to us? Is education valuable to you? Is this? So it'll be all those different things, and so you'll be able to identify them. And as a bonus, for those who send any donation of $20 and up, I will also send you a Graph of Life worksheet. And so what this is totally different from what we've discussed today. But when you're having those natural shifts, it's still in tune. But when you have those natural shifts in life, or those intentional shifts in life. Say, for instance, example, there's a mother that's been staying home with her children, and then all of a sudden she realizes, or if you're not even a mother, you've been staying home, and due to whatever, and now certain situations and circumstances require you to make a shift. Maybe now you have to get a job because the kids are older, they're in school now, or you just realize that it's a little bit more things that you want to do, and living how you've been living has not been, thank you so much, Jules. I'll be sending your worksheets and along with the Graph of Life. And so there are different things in your life, and you might be feeling fulfilled in your life, but you just simply cannot pinpoint what is the area. It might be so many areas, but you just don't know what area exactly is it that you're unfulfilled in. And so what the Graph of Life assessment worksheet does, it allows you to actually rate different areas in your life to pinpoint where you're feeling unfulfilled. And so through this, you're able to identify, like, okay, I feel this fulfilled in this area, but not this, but not as fulfilled in here. And now you can actually take the steps to writing down the solutions that would bump that number up, higher than where it is. Now you can assess what needs to be done so that you have time and so that you have room through those energy drainer worksheets, so that you're not drained, so that you can stay away from this thing or that situation, so that you can have peace, and so that you can move in your purpose, and so that you have time to reflect and time to do those things that God is telling you to do. Or you might need to reprioritize your life and adjust some things and understand that what is God's purpose for my life? I can't allow my mother, my father, my children, the building that I assemble at, define what it is or what my life looks like, or what I should be doing to move forward in my purpose. I have to discover what that purpose is. I have to discover what areas in my life. And sometimes, it's not always that crystal clear. And I believe that because we serve, again, God, who is the God of the supernatural, as the supernatural realm, he's also the God of the natural realm. And so through these activities, through these assessments, you begin to see in your life right before you exactly where this unfulfillment is and where you need to shift your priority to. So I'm super excited. Again, I'll have all the information there, and I look forward to talking to you all on next Monday again at 1:30. Don't forget to share with someone. Don't forget to reach out. I'll be looking at the comments. If you have any questions, I am definitely here to answer some short questions, but don't make the question a coaching session. Book a session. Boundaries. Listen, I'm all here for it. So if you have truly enjoyed, this video, and you believe this live discussion that it's been helpful, please feel free to give a donation. Please feel free to go ahead and share. Please feel free to reach out and share any situation that resonated with you. Honestly, you know that I'm here, and I love you all, and I want to hear it. So you have a wonderful day, okay? And get to setting some boundaries. Talk to you soon.